it's Nicole. Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, I have the newest collection from ILNP. This is their new Pop collection for spring 2026. The Pop collection features 6 brand new magnetic nail polishes to the brand. All 6 of these nail polishes are inspired by different sodas, and I feel like the concept of having a spring collection inspired by soda is kind of fun. The Pop collection was sent to me in gifted PR from ILNP. This video is not sponsored, but I did receive all the polishes from the brand. The Pop collection goes on sale Friday, April 17th on the ILNP website. For the first few days of sale, the collection will be listed at 10% off. I'll get more into the sale information towards the end of the video. By the time this video goes up, I believe wish listing should be live so you can see all the polishes on the website. So as always, in the description box, I will have links where you can pick these polishes up. And there goes a cat. I'll also have links to the brand's social media pages, my social media pages, and of course, timestamps are in the description box as well. And I'll also have some comparisons coming up, and I'll have all my final thoughts and feelings for the end of the video. Let's get into this video. The first polish up is called Blue Fizz, and ILNP describes this one as a vivid blue magnetic with a holographic sparkle. Spoiler alert, all the polishes in this collection have the exact same formula, so it's gonna be a little bit repetitive. Blue Fizz had a fantastic formula. I love this base color so very much. It is a very vibrant shade of blue, and you're going to hear me say this a lot throughout this whole video. I don't feel like this particular shade looks anything like a spring collection, but I am perfectly fine with spring collections not looking like spring collections because I don't like pastels. Blue Fizz had a fantastic formula. I didn't find the base to feel overly thick or thin. Zero application issues. I will say, however, the magnetic pigment in this particular shade, while I feel like the base color itself is a very bright and vibrant blue shade, very summery in my opinion, I feel like you get like an added kind of frostiness from that silver magnetic pigment. And you'll hear me say this a couple of times throughout this whole video. I feel very confident that the magnetic pigment in this particular shade is in fact silver. However, I feel like it gets tinted a little bit from the base color. So for this particular shade, it almost looks like the magnetic pigment is kind of like a really pale blue, like an icy blue. Unmagnetized, your nail looks super, super icy, but once you magnetize it, you lose the iciness, and the color on the nail is like a little bit darker because all of the silver kind of into a line. I found this particular shade kind of interesting. While the brand does say that there's holographic in this particular shade, I'm fairly confident they're holographic flakes. I feel like how the holographic flakes look in the base, I kept going back and forth trying to figure out if I was seeing like an additional flake in there, like a blue metallic flake. I don't think there's one in there. The holographic flakies in this shade do not distract at all from the magnetic pigment. I feel like the magnetic pigment is indeed the star of the show for this particular polish, and you just get like a really pretty sparkle in the background. For Blue Fizz, if you have any kind of free edge, I think this is probably going to be a solid 3-coater. I feel like because this shade, it shears out quite a bit once you magnetize it in the second coat. And I just found that magnetized on the second coat, it gets a little bit uneven and kind of patchy looking. And I don't feel like it looks great on the nail. So I'm going to call this one a solid 3-coater. Maybe if you go in for significantly thicker coats, you can kind of skip that extra step. But I feel like the amount it shears out in the second coat, I just thought it looked kind of ugh. I did also find that when I added the third coat to this particular shade and then magnetized it again, I feel like the base definitely deepened up quite a bit, and I really like the level of saturation that I got with that added third coat as well. My swatches show Blue Fizz in 3 coats: unmagnetized, magnetized with the cat eye effect, and magnetized with the velvet effect. Nothing in here is going to dry down overly textured. One layer of top coat is going to smooth everything out perfectly. While I did not personally experience any staining while swatching out this particular shade, I also had on 2 layers of base coat to protect my natural nails. If you are at all concerned about staining, double up on your base coat at the minimum. But I don't foresee this one being overly difficult to remove at all. The next polish up is called Shirley, and the information I received from the brand, they're describing this one as a vivid red magnetic with a holographic sparkle. Shirley had a fantastic formula. I believe this one is probably inspired by like a Shirley Temple drink. That's my guess. Shirley had a fantastic formula. I didn't find the base feeling overly thick or thin. Zero application issues. In my personal opinion, I feel like this particular shade is leaning super strongly as looking more like a fall or winter shade. Like, this does not look like a spring polish at all. Me, myself, I am not in fact a seasonal polish wearer, so I'm not mad at all at this not feeling super springy, but I know for some of you all who are very strong in your seasonal polish wearings are probably screaming looking at this one. Unmagnetized, this has a very kind of like chromy metallic-y kind of look to it, but I found once you magnetize this particular shade, you have a really vibrant red that, again, it feels very fall to winter. Like, I could for sure see someone using this particular design for like Christmas nail art even. I believe that the magnetic pigment in this particular shade is in fact silver, but because the base on here is red, I did find that the overall look of the magnetic pigment on the nail does look kind of like a pinky kind of silverish color, but it's not color shifty. I feel very confident that it is in fact a silver magnetic pigment, and it's just kind of tinted from the red base. There is also a very delicate holographic sparkle in here. It's not so delicate that I couldn't see it easily on the nail. While I do feel that the magnetic effect of this particular polish is definitely the star of the show, there is in fact enough holographic in this particular shade that you're still going to get like a really nice holographic sparkle without distracting too much from the magnetic pigment. So I swatched out Shirley in 3 coats total. I will, however, call this one a 2 to 3 coater depending on your own personal preference. It shears out just a little bit when you magnetize this particular shade, so I'm calling it a 2 to 3 coater. For my swatches, this is shown in 3 coats: unmagnetize, magnetize with the cat eye effect, and magnetize with the velvet effect. While I did not personally experience any staining while swatching out this particular shade, I am going to give a staining warning all the same. I feel like the red pigment in this particular shade really wanted to stick to my nails, so if you are at all concerned about staining, at least double up on your base coat. I doubled up on mine for these swatches. Nothing in here is going to dry down textured. Removal is going to be fairly easy, but again, staining warning, use the soak off method or a peel off base coat. And just a warning, if you choose to use a peel off base coat with a shade,
now listen closely,
I'll call it a high staining warning. Just be aware that peel off base coats do not do anything to prevent staining. So if you really want to prevent staining, don't count your peel off base coat layer as a real protective base coat layer. Technically, if you want to prevent the staining as much as possible while wearing a peel off base coat, I would actually recommend 2 more layers of base coat, like a normal base coat on top of your peel off base coat, because peel off base coats are generally like water or glue based and they don't do anything to protect from staining. Just a little pro tip there. The next polish up is called Cherry Cola, and ILNP describes this one as a warm cola brown magnetic with a holographic sparkle. So Cherry Cola had a fantastic formula. So I appreciate that ILNP is describing this one as a brown, because I feel like in the bottle and on my nails, it looks red to my eye. It's a very dark red. I feel like naturally, just seeing like the polish name before I read the description, I was calling this one something in like the maroon family. I wouldn't say that this goes so far towards like oxblood. I don't feel like it's that color family, but it's definitely like a dark red with a lot of brown undertones, which I do in fact feel is the color of Cherry Cola. I am, however, going to call this one a 2 to 3 coater depending on personal preference and application style. I didn't find that this one sheared out too badly on the second coat, but for my magnetization shots, it's going to be showing the magnetization shots in 3 coats, and I was able to keep that full opacity in 3 coats for the magnetization. As someone who is not really like this type of red kind of lover, I will say I thought this looked beautiful on the nail. I was genuinely shocked that I even liked this particular color. Similarly to the other shades in this release, I did still find that the magnetic effect in here is definitely the star of the show, but the holographic is a really pretty background sparkle. Like, I feel like there's just enough holographic in here that I'm not just like, why no rainbows? But it's also not like overpowering the magnetic effect. Texture-wise, 1 layer of top coat and you're going to be good. I did not find that this dried down overly textured at all. Honestly, I'm struggling a little bit to think of what ILNP shade does dry down with texture. ILNP is not like a textured polish brand. 1 layer of top coat and you will be good for smoothing everything out. While I did not personally experience staining, I feel like staining is a potential to happen here. So if you're concerned about that, double up on your base coat. Removal is not going to be overly difficult at all though. Replace one cat with another. The next polish up is called Grape Soda, and ILNP describes this one as a saturated grape purple magnetic polish with a holographic sparkle. Grape Soda had a fantastic formula. As a grape soda lover, I love that we have a grape soda polish in this particular collection. I will say this one was a little bit more sheer than the other polishes on that first coat, but similar to everything else, it's going to be a 2 to 3 coater. I found this applied super easily, very evenly, and magnetized perfectly as well. I still have yet to come across an ILNP shade that actually applied like trash, truthfully.
That's my opinion!
While I will call this one a 2 to 3 coater, I do think similar to some of the other polishes in this particular collection, on my nails personally, I found that this one did shear out quite a bit on that second coat, so I actually prefer this one magnetized in 3 coats as opposed to 2, but I feel like for those of you with shorter nails or even like smaller nails than me, it's definitely going to be passable. Similar to like in Blue Fizz, The base does deepen up just like a smidge more with that third coat. You get quite a bit more like saturation and opacity with the third coat, but it's not like 100% necessary either. But for my swatches, the magnetization shots are all in 3 coats. I actually should have something on screen right now showing the difference between 2 coats magnetized in the cat eye effect versus 3 coats magnetized with the cat eye effect, just so you can see the differences what I was yapping about. I would describe the base color on Grape Soda as being, it's grape soda color.
Yeah, no Sherlock.
Color-wise, I would say that this is indeed leaning on the more darker end of the spectrum. I feel like this would fit in perfectly in like the fall or even winter. The magnetic pigment does make it seem brighter than it actually is though. I do feel like, however, because the magnetic pigment here is silver, Stormy, please don't lick your booty hole. Okay, you're licking your, oh. Just like all the other polishes in the collection, I would highly recommend doubling up on base coat if you are all concerned about staining. These all do feel fairly saturated, but removal is going to be super duper easy with this particular shade. The next polish up is called Orange Pop, and ILNP describes this one as a juicy orange magnetic with a holographic sparkle. Orange Pop also had a fantastic formula. Shocker, it applied super evenly, very easily, and magnetized just as easily as well. I phrased that wrong, but you understand what I mean. So this is one of the shades in this particular collection. I was once again able to reach full opacity in only 2 coats unmagnetized. While I did find that the shade did sheer out just like a smidge once I magnetized it in the cat eye effect, I still feel like I just want to like call it a 2 to 3 coater just in case. Similarly to in the polish for Blue Fizz, I feel like once again, the holographic flakies in this particular shade, how they kind of interact with the base color, it almost looks like there was like an additional like orange flake in here. Again, I still think it might be just the silver holographic flakes interacting with the pigmentation of the base color, and not that there's like an additional flake in here, but like I'm just guessing based on my eyeballs. So my live swatches show Orange Pop in 2 coats on its own, in 2 coats in the cat eye effect, and then the velvet effect is with a 3rd coat. I absolutely love this tone of orange. This is a very, once again, a super bright and summery orange shade. Like, I feel like this color would fit perfectly in a summer collection. Truthfully, we're far enough along in like the spring collections. I feel like usually for ILNP, they usually do have at least one of their spring collections feels very transitional towards summer. I feel like this might be that collection for this year. I feel like this might be the 4th one we've done for ILNP for spring. Don't quote me on that, but I think this is the 4th one we've done for spring for them. So I think this shade's gonna work perfectly for summer, but if you're like me and you're not a seasonal polish wearer, you can wear it whenever you want. Nothing in here is gonna dry down overly textured. 1 layer of top coat and you are going to be good. Removal also is gonna be super duper easy. I wouldn't personally scrub this shade off, but I don't scrub off anything. Do what you want, it's your nail. And the final polish in the collection is called Bubbly, and this is a topper. ILNP describes this one as a silver magnetic topper with a holographic sparkle. Bubbly also had a fantastic formula. I am pretty confident that the magnetic pigment in here plus the holographic, I am fairly confident that the magnetic pigment in this particular shade as well as the holographic flakies are the exact same that we've seen throughout this entire collection. So if you own any jelly shades, you basically can recreate all the other polishes in this collection with the topper. Formula-wise, I found this one to be absolutely fantastic. For my live swatches, you're going to see this one built up on its own in 3 coats, plus magnetized, and as well as a shot of this magnetized over black. Because this shade is indeed a topper, the only reason I swatched this one out on its own was because the promo images that ILNP sent me showed it on its own. I truthfully didn't even realize it was a topper. I was sitting here wondering why it was so sheer, and then I realized that like the little text called it a topper. So that's truthfully why I built it up on its own in 3 coats and then have like 1 shot of it as a topper. It's because of that. As far as toppers go, I feel like this applies really nicely. I didn't find that it grayed out the base too badly. Like I feel like especially over black, you can really see how much like silver you get overall on your nail for this particular shade. Truthfully, I'm really glad that ILNP is releasing another topper. I feel like they haven't done a lot of toppers in collections as of late, so I'm really glad that they did this particular topper. I feel like this is also a really nice way of having a holographic magnetic topper without being concerned about potential like the holographic pigment dyeing or anything like that. Nothing in here is going to dry down textured, super easy removal, no issues with staining. It's literally silver. Does silver stain nails? I don't know. You tell me. Alrighty, let's get into the comparisons. I found that for the magnetics in ILNP's lineup, they weren't exactly like these, at least not the ones that I have. So I pulled out some other brands I thought would be like kind of comparable color-wise. So to compare to Shirley right here, I pulled out Cert Colors Ruby Slipper, Cert Colors Fire Horse, Holo Taco's Sacrificial Lacquer, and then over here for like color comparisons, I pulled out ILNP's Secret Santa and ILNP's Merlot. So to start with, within the ILNP catalog, I pulled out Secret Santa over here because when I was swatching out Shirley, I really thought that this was like within the Christmas kind of color family. So I pulled out Secret Santa over here, which I feel like is like the bright, vibrant Santa Claus red. Whereas for Shirley, I would describe this more as like the darker kind of red that's not quite as cartoony for like a Santa Claus kind of color. So for over here for the magnetic shades, I didn't think color-wise any of these other magnetics were going to be like that similar to the ILNP polish, but I just wanted to pull out some other kind of red so you can kind of see color differences. I would say Sacrificial Lacquer over here is the darkest of the bunch. Fire Horse right here is much more of an orangey kind of red. And I feel like Ruby Slipper in comparison to Shirley, this one's leaning just like a little bit more kind of in the pink family as opposed to like a true red. But I think this one is like a red. I feel like it's just looking a lot more pink next to a darker red. To compare to Orange Pop, this was probably the hardest one that I found to try to compare to, largely because I apparently don't own any like true orange magnetic shades. Disappointed! All of my orange magnetics were more of like a burnt orange family as opposed to like this type of orange, which I find super, super interesting as someone who has as many nail polishes that I have. Like, I went and checked my swatch ring for oranges, and I was severely lacking in anything in this color family for an orange. So what I ended up pulling out was Holo Taco's Xyler Cat Eye, and then over here I pulled out ILNP's Tango because Linry wanted to see the color differences between these two here.
Hi, my name is Linry.
And then over here I pulled out ILNP's Bright Side. So yeah, none of these are like terribly similar, but I feel like you can kind of see like color differences, I suppose, between all of them. Next up, to compare to Blue Fizz, over here I pulled out ILNP's Alice. Over here I pulled out Cert Colors Puddle, which just came out earlier this month. And then right here we have ILNP's Cannonball, and then right here we have Holo Taco's Polar Opposites. Once again, I didn't think any of these were like terribly comparable to the other. I feel like within my own collection, I'd say all of these different blues are all completely justifiable to own them all. Like, I don't think any of them are like that similar. As far as the magnetics go, Cert Colors Puddle is probably gonna be like the most different just because I think for all of these polishes here, they all have silver magnetic pigment, whereas the Cert Colors silver magnetic pigment, this one is the new kind of fine particle magnetic pigment that's currently being used a lot. So you can kind of see that the magnetic pigment here is less sparkly than these other polishes. So for the comparisons for Blue Fizz, I did goof a little bit. I completely forgot that Holo Taco had a discontinued magnetic polish called Once in a Blue Moon. So that is what's compared to it right here. I would say the differences between these two shades, Once in a Blue Moon is definitely going to be darker. From what I'm seeing in person, it looks like Once in a Blue Moon, the magnetic pigment in here is like slightly color shifty. I'm seeing a blue to purple color shift on here. So I wouldn't say these two are like super similar, but if you were in the market for a blue magnetic that is kind of like almost similar vibes to Once in a Blue Moon, I would say this one will be easier, less expensive, and probably magnetized quite a bit easier. And to compare to Cherry Cola, I pulled out Holo Taco's Fairy Tale. Pretty sure this one has been discontinued. And I also pulled out Mooncat's Scum and Villainy. I believe this also has been discontinued. I was really struggling with trying to decide on what brown shades people would want to see to compare to Cherry Cola. Also, it did not magnetize very well. Sorry about that. I wouldn't say any of these are like terribly similar at all. And next up, to compare to Grape Soda, I pulled out ILNP's Mood Ring right here. I pulled out ILNP's Light Wave right here. And then over here we have Cert Colors Clairvoyant next to Cert Colors Under My Umbrella. Similar to the blue comparisons, the Cert over here is the kind of newer, smoother, smaller particle size magnetic pigment, so it's not as sparkly as these other shades over here. I would say color-wise, once again, none of these are terribly similar. I do feel like Grape Soda, as far as the color goes, I see it leaning a little bit in this department over here to Under My Umbrella, but I still feel like both of these shades are in fact pretty different. Under My Umbrella also doesn't have any of the little holographic flakies that this particular shade has, but I feel like the vibes are kind of similar between these two, but to me, they're different enough to be justifiably different. And then for the two ILNP shades over here, both of these, on top of having a magnetic pigment, they both also have an additional like color shifty shimmer in here. So they're not like too similar to this particular shade. And the final comparison is for the topper. So right here we have ILNP's Bubbly. Right here we have Cert Color's Starry Eyed. And then right here we have Holo Taco's Holo Magnetic Taco. So I specifically pulled out these Cert Colors and the Holo Taco toppers largely because the ILNP, this one is a silver magnetic pigment with the addition of holographic flakies. The Cert Colors polish is a silver holographic magnetic polish. So the magnetic in this particular shade is also holographic, and then it has an additional holographic element that I think are either glitter or flakies. Can't remember which one. And then the Holo Taco shade, in my personal opinion, this is a silver magnetic pigment, but there's also a silver holographic magnetic pigment. And then on top of all of that, you also have an additional holographic element as well. So I feel like all three of these are three different magnetic polishes, but they are very similar as far as like their silver and holographic goes. Here is another angle of the three shades, just so you can see the holographic levels. I would say the most holographic of the bunch is going to be the Cert Colors one. I feel like because the magnetic pigment in here is holographic, and then it also has a holographic element to it, that it just has more holo. But you can really see that the Holo Taco one and like this alternate lighting, it definitely has like a lot of holo in the magnetic pigment as well. And I feel like the ILNP is not pulling quite as holographic as the other shades, but I can in fact still see the rainbows there. Okie dokie, so final thoughts time. So overall, I thought this was a really fun release. If you have watched any of my other spring collection reviews, you know that I always really love and appreciate when a brand does a spring collection that is not in fact like your typical spring pastels. I really like the theme of this particular collection, like the idea of having different kind of like soda colors. I've been doing swatch reviews here on YouTube for, how long has it been? 5 years? 5 years now I've been doing swatch reviews. And I can't recall the last time I had like a soda themed collection. I like the color story of this collection as well. I feel like all these colors go together really nicely. I will admit, when I initially saw like the promo images that ILNP sent out, I didn't really think this collection was going to be for me. I thought it was going to be kind of boring, but the colors were actually a lot prettier on the nail than I was expecting them to be. And even though I don't generally always love it when a collection has all the same finish through all of the polishes, I feel like this one actually goes pretty well, and I'm not mad at all that these all had the exact same finish to them. My surprise favorite from this collection is definitely going to be the Cherry Cola shade. I didn't think I was going to like that one because I am a fake red polish hater. But as far as my own personal top pick go, I think Blue Fizz is probably going to be my favorite one. I'm just a really big fan of blues in that particular tone, and I can't help but pick that one as a top pick. I would love to know what everyone else thought of this release. Are you planning on picking this one up? What do you feel about magnetics? I feel like magnetics are currently very polarizing in the nail space. I feel like for a lot of us, we kind of like are kind of over it and want like something else, but I also feel like there's some really fun magnetics coming out, so I kind of understand why brands are doing so many of them. As far as pricing and sale information goes, the Pop collection will be available starting this Friday, April 17th on the ILNP website. For the first 3 days of the polishes being available, they will be discounted by 10%. And then after that window closes, the polishes will be priced at $12.50 for a 12 ml bottle. Hi folks, so as I was recording this video, ILNP just announced that they're going to be retiring 73 different nail polishes on April 24th. ILNP does not retire shades super often. The last time they retired this many polishes was 4 years ago. They are going to be extending the 10% off sale on these polishes in particular until April 24th. That way, if you want to pick up any of the shades they're going to be retiring, you can also pick these up at the exact same time. All of the shades that they're retiring are going to be priced 15% off. So again, if you've been waiting to buy ILNP for a while, that's going to be as good of a sale as you're going to get outside of Black Friday. ILNP offers international shipping from the United States. They are also available on both Amazon and Etsy. If you are new to ILNP, they don't really do sales too often. Like, I think they only do one sale a year, and that's their Black Friday sale. So if you want to pick up ILNP outside of like sale windows, picking them up during the first couple of days of sale is probably the best way to go. And since this is ILNP, we're talking about this release is not considered limited edition. If you are digging ILNP, I will have my ILNP playlist linked in the description box and hopefully up in the cards as well. If you like the vibes around here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Before we end today's video, I do want to give a very special shout out to my channel members. Shenanigans, Story Fans, your names of course, all on the screen right now. If you would like to sign up for my channel memberships, there is a link for that in the description box, or you can just click join next to the subscribe button, but as always, that is completely optional. Just like the video, comment on the video, share the video, and subscribe. It's all greatly appreciated. Where are you going, Storm? You're leaving? Okay, she's gone. So just thank you all for joining me for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a lovely week, folks, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Definitely like maroon. Is maroon? What color is maroon? Let's verify. Is that the right color? Maroon color. Okay. Yeah, maroon. Deep reddish brown color. Hi, Stormy. Meow. 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 Come here. You want to say hello to everybody? Say hi.
When I get high, I ain't looking at the clock, still ballin' like Brian. Yeah, I'm headed to the Bucks, then I'm ballin' like yeah.